They've all been executed.
Hello, Johnny from Eurogamer here, and this is A Plague Tale Innocence, the rat-infested action-adventure game currently in development at Asobo Studio. I really hope I said that right. In case you haven't heard of it already, A Plague Tale Innocence follows young woman Amicia and her 5-year-old brother Hugo as they fight to stay alive in 14th century France, a medieval country ravaged by plague and war. Promising us a dark and brooding tale, the Inquisition stalks the streets looking for the two siblings, and where the light from their torches fails to reach, rats gather in ravenous swarms. Far from unwitting hosts for plague-carrying fleas, these rats are as much a danger to the people of France as the plague they're spreading, capable of stripping a human to the bone in a matter of seconds. I've had my eye on this game for quite some time now, and frankly I think people are sleeping on it. Some new uncut gameplay has just been released, so I took it upon myself to make this 6 reasons we're excited for A Plague Tale Innocence. Firstly, it looks great.
Stay calm. Think of Hugo.
The first thing that drew me into A Plague Tale, before I even knew about its swarming rat packs and dark, brooding narrative, was the visuals. The world looks really detailed, the character animations are good, and, quite frankly, the lighting is gorgeous, which is absolutely key in a game that plays so heavily on light and darkness as a means of survival, as is the case here. See, as I mentioned earlier, the rats of A Plague Tale shrink away from the light. But, once they're shrouded in darkness, they become emboldened killers. Moving toward the light, or, as is often the case, bringing the light to you, is vitally important if you want to survive. And the game's lighting does a great job of showing you where it's safe to tread, while the beady eyes of hundreds of rats indicate just how dangerous it is to step into the dark. Best of all, the UI rarely shows up on screen and is really minimal when it does, allowing you to take in more of the world around you without the constant reminder you're playing a game with ammo counts and crafting and so on and so forth. Taking the same route that was so deftly trodden by Hellblade, voice cues provide the vast majority of the information you'll need to press on, as Amicia talks to those around her, and often herself, about how things are progressing or what she needs to do next. It's a simple conceit in terms of getting you to empathise with what she's feeling and thinking in any given situation, but it also reduces A Plague Tale's reliance on intrusive on-screen messages, making this a game you need to listen to as much as watch. And with that in mind, it's a good thing it sounds pretty nice, as long as you like crows. While it may look nice, however, the second reason I'm excited for A Plague Tale Innocence is that it looks horrible. I'll be honest, when I first started watching the new chunk of Plague Tale gameplay, I really underestimated how many bloody rib cages and eviscerated corpses I'd see Amicia treading through. I wasn't expecting there to be quite so many hanged men strewn about the place, either. If these indicators weren't enough to tip you off, then A Plague Tale really isn't pulling its punches in terms of dark, gothic horror, and there's something about how prevalent these horrible scenes are, how ordinary they seem to be in this time and place, that makes it all the more gruesome. A Plague Tale Innocence follows the story of the young and vulnerable trying to make their way through a hard and cruel world, and it's impressive how strong that sense of animosity is in the game's environments. Even the streets that are somehow blessedly free of fresh corpses manage to be menacing, making it an unnerving space to pick your way through. It reminds me of the first time I visited Dunwall in Dishonored, only by comparison, A Plague Tale's buckets of gore make Dunwall look pretty tame, especially when it comes to people being devoured by rats. Of course, A Plague Tale isn't just a game about crawling through fresh corpses and admiring the way the light dances in the eyes of 1,000 hungry rodents. There's also some pretty nifty puzzle gameplay to contend with. As I mentioned earlier, the Inquisition is very much out to get Amicia and Hugo, making it super important to avoid them. A lot of the time, however, they're the only ones with a torch bright enough to scare off the ever-present rat swarm, and there's a sea of hungry critters between you and where you need to go. Contriving ways to distract the rats or to draw the guards in so they unwittingly clear a path for you is a big part of the gameplay here, and, in that way, A Plague Tale is as much a puzzle game as it is an action-adventure. Because you're playing as this vulnerable protagonist who's having to do so much growing up very quickly in a hostile environment, surviving becomes very much about using the world around you rather than relying solely on your innate survival abilities. As a result, many of the game's environments are basically elaborate puzzles, and I am quite excited to get stuck in and unpick them for myself. This type of puzzle gameplay, in fact, leads neatly onto the next reason I'm looking forward to A Plague Tale Innocence, and that's the pacing. Often when you hear action-adventure, you picture a fast-paced game that sees you tearing through the streets, blasting through walls, and swinging across crevices like Uncharted's Nathan Drake. The thing is, if Nathan tried that in this instance, he'd either be eaten by rats or gutted by the Inquisition faster than he could say, "Salut, je suis Nathan, où est le trésor antique?" Stealth is very much the order of the day here, meaning your progress through the world is considerably slower and more considered than in other games. Figuring out the best route to get you through an area while remaining both undetected and uneaten is all about taking your time, which, considering the dangers in the world around you, makes for a really tense-looking experience. That tension is certainly evident in the way Amicia moves and speaks in the new chunk of gameplay, reminding us while it is nice to take your time and work things out every once in a while, that doesn't mean it always has to be a pleasant experience. Talking of stealth, puzzles, and unpleasantness then, the penultimate reason we're excited for A Plague Tale Innocence is that the rats can be friend or foe, depending on your circumstances. As I think has already been well established by this point, the rats of A Plague Tale are as ravenous as they are numerous, and they won't hesitate to rip you apart should you stray too far from the light. The good news, of course, is that's just as true for other people as it is for you. Using pre-existing corpses to distract the swarm and allow you safe passage is one thing, but you can also direct the flow of the rats around you by extinguishing or redirecting lights. Using them, for example, to eliminate any enemies that might be in your way.
What? Hey!
That will teach you.
It's a pretty ruthless maneuver, but hey, rather them than you, right? I mean, I'm not saying I want to feed absolutely everybody to the rats or anything, but it's still interesting that there's a duality to the rats in the same way there is to the soldiers of the Inquisition. As I mentioned earlier, the Inquisitors often have a torch when you don't, and it might well be in your interests to keep them alive rather than taking them out, despite the fact they obviously mean you harm. Manipulating or frustrating these two enemy factions as benefits you most is a really neat way to get these two groups to interact with one another, making them more complex and interesting than a straight obstacle in your path. And finally, the last reason we're excited for A Plague Tale Innocence is the crafting system. Now, I know crafting systems aren't exactly the most thrilling of things to talk about, and to be honest, I'm not normally a fan, but I am intrigued by the variety of ammo types you can make for Amicia's trusty sling, or for use in more immediate circumstances. You can craft a highly volatile projectile that will reignite the embers of a gutted torch, for example. There are corrosives that can eat through metal, or you can make a fast-acting slumber powder that can render guards unconscious. It's a varied arsenal designed to be used as fits the situation, reminding me a bit of the Thief series. Because you never know what item you'll need at any given point, you can craft most things on the go from the resources you find around you. Other items, like expanded inventory slots or a quieter sling, meanwhile, can be made on crafting benches dotted about the place, and there's an NPC called Lucas who can teach you new recipes. See? It's not all doom and gloom and deadly rats. It's just mostly doom and gloom and deadly rats. Anyway, there you have it, 6 reasons we're excited for A Plague Tale Innocence. What do you think? Are you interested in trying it for yourself, or are you going to avoid it like the plague? Let us know in the comments below. Hopefully you found this video interesting. If you did, there are loads more from Eurogamer to watch, so do give one of those a click. Do like, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss anything else from Eurogamer, but most importantly, thank you very much for watching, and have a lovely day.
What? Hey!
That will teach you.